Aliens in the Bible, myth or reality? Catholic mystery. Do you think aliens are in the Bible? Did God only create humans and angels? Or did we completely miss something? In this video, I'll explain how I came to the conclusion that aliens are indeed biblical, and how they have been impacting humanity for a very long time. Inquiring whether aliens are biblical is the question we need to be asking, instead of allowing our brothers and sisters to be deceived. This topic is far from fiction, since the governments of the world are openly admitting that these things exist. If aliens actually exist, it would make sense for God to explain what they are in the Bible, since He is the creator of everything, right? If you believe so, I'll tell you now that we certainly get detailed answers in the Bible about what so-called aliens are. So, open your mind before we continue, because this topic is a good one. Let's start! Understanding more about UFOs and aliens. Let's start by looking at potential verses hinting at what UFOs are and what aliens are. First, and most importantly, we must look at the book of Ezekiel, since it has the most vivid description of a potential UFO containing non-human entities. Ezekiel 1 says, "I looked, and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures." Here is how these creatures looked in Ezekiel's own words. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their 4 sides, they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the 4 had the face of a human being, and on the right side each had the face of a lion, and on the left the face of an ox. Each also had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. They each had 2 wings spreading out upward, each wing touching that of the creature on either side, and each had 2 other wings covering its body. Each one went straight ahead. Wherever the spirit would go, they would go, without turning as they went. The appearance of the living creatures was like burning coals of fire or like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures. It was bright, and lightning flashed out of it. The creatures sped back and forth like flashes of lightning. We now know that the creatures Ezekiel saw are known as cherubim angels. The question is, what would we think these angels are today if they came to us as an immense cloud, with flashing lightning, surrounded by brilliant light, with the center of the fire looking like glowing metal as Ezekiel described? We would most likely think we encountered something otherworldly, which wouldn't be completely false. That takes me to the next biblical verse that describes something even more compelling. 2 Kings 2:1 says, "As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the 2 of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind." This sounds like a very interesting encounter. Seeing Elijah being taken up into a whirlwind sounds very similar to what people currently call an abduction, but this can all be explained very easily. Just like we saw in Ezekiel's description of these beings actually being angels, that is also what the prophet Elijah encountered. So basically we're told that so-called aliens are angels. It is very important to understand that it's not the other way around, because the Bible doesn't directly speak about outer space aliens, but it does speak about mysterious UFOs that the prophets encountered. This is why I believe any being throughout history that called itself an alien from a different planet was actually just a fallen angel. People always ask, why would an angel need an aircraft? That is a question we ask because we don't fully understand what angels are, due to the devil deceiving the whole world, just as we were told he would do in the book of Revelation. The first thing I want to enlighten you all on, before I explain why angels would use an aircraft, is how some of the angels are physical beings. Not all of them are physical beings, but for the ones that are, in many ways they share similarities with humans, such as needing to eat food. 2 angels ate food with Lot and his family in the Bible, before destroying the 2 ancient cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, to explain why an angel would need an aircraft, let's look at God's chariots of fire more so as a spiritual craft that can travel interdimensionally. Even the Bible tells us this is exactly what the chariot of fire did when it took Elijah. It says that when Elijah was taken up into a whirlwind, the chariot of fire took him to heaven, and as we know, heaven is a supernatural place that is not on this earth, and that just lets us know that these chariots of fire can travel interdimensionally. That would make sense since angels are interdimensional beings themselves. The word angel literally means messenger. which is why angels travel from realm to realm, delivering the messages of God to humans. Perhaps this is why, when people see UFOs, they can just instantly disappear since they are interdimensional, not interstellar. This just means they are not from space, but instead from a different dimension. The only difference now is that when our ancestors saw them, they immediately knew they were angels. But now we think they're aliens. This is all by design by the more deceptive powers. The angels worshipped at the Giza pyramids, a symbol of aliens. Fallen angels were also known as the gods of old. It all started with the rebellion of Lucifer in heaven. Lucifer and his angels wanted to be worshipped as gods, so they were cast out of heaven and were sent to earth. When they came here, however, they lived out their plan of being worshipped as gods among humans. The fallen angels seemed to change their identity to deceive every generation. Let's take a look at some of the earliest signs of these fallen angels being worshipped. Ancient Egypt is one of the most impacted cultures regarding idolatry. We can see the worship of over 2,000 gods in the Egyptian pantheon. But is this just the worship of idol statues? Or were the ancient Egyptians actually seeing these fallen angels? Well, to answer that, the truth is in the mystery of Egypt itself, the mysterious and incomprehensible construction of the pyramids of Giza, the practice of magic by the ancient Egyptians, and the riches and arrogance of the Egyptian pharaohs, reflecting the same beliefs as the fallen angels. The Bible even tells us about how evil the Pharaoh was in Exodus, when the pharaohs enslaved and oppressed the Israelites. Pharaoh was described as having a hardened heart. Now let's speak about the pyramids of Giza. The pyramids of Giza are perfectly aligned with the 3 stars in the constellation of Orion. This precision did not just occur by accident. There was definitely an intelligent mind behind this creation, far more complex than human beings of the time. And we are told who helped the ancient Egyptians, simply by looking at the Egyptian hieroglyphs. There is an even older civilization known as the Sumerians that encountered mysterious beings that seem to have a direct link to biblical history, and also the Book of Enoch. These beings are known as the Anunnaki, and they are the first race of so-called aliens I'll be explaining. The Sumerians created a collection of ancient tablets describing their encounter with the Anunnaki. Ironically, the Anunnaki look identical to conventional angels, yet the narrative surrounding these beings is that they're aliens from a planet known as Nibiru. But let's continue to what the Sumerian tablets say about the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are a group of deities that descended to Earth and directly manipulated human DNA during the early stages, turning humanity into a godlike race. This was not for a good reason, however, and in the process, several experimental human species were destroyed. But eventually, in this story, the Anunnaki created the perfect human species. The Anunnaki only did this to turn humans into their own personal slave race to mine gold for them. This is because gold is a crucial mineral for these beings. It is believed that the Anunnaki can live for hundreds of thousands of years. If this is true, the same Anunnaki from ancient Sumeria wouldn't even have a wrinkle yet, and that was over 6,000 years ago. The Anunnaki allegedly use a gold-like substance to sustain their age for extremely long periods of time. In the Book of Enoch, there is a group of angels known as the Watchers, and their story is consistent with that of the Anunnaki. The Bible also mentions a similar story in the Book of Genesis. If you're not familiar with the biblical canon, the Book of Enoch extends the narrative of Genesis, particularly concerning the biblical giants, the fallen angels, demons, and the Great Flood. The Book of Enoch describes how the Watchers came down to Earth and manipulated human beings, creating all types of twisted human-angel hybrid creatures that nearly eradicated humanity. They are known in the Bible as the Nephilim. These giants were so evil that God himself had to intervene to put them in check. God wiped out the giants with a great flood, and the spirits of the giants became demons. Essentially, the fallen angels in the Book of Enoch created demons. Now I have a favor to ask of you. Please share your thoughts, questions, and comments below this video. Sharing can be a source of support and personal growth. Together, we can create a smart and enlightened community. The Story of Aliens, the American Alien Races Campaign. The story of the Anunnaki is very similar because the Sumerian tablets tell us how the Anunnaki also manipulated human DNA. Clearly, some kind of event took place where a race of angelic beings came to Earth and manipulated human DNA. It is biblical that this happened, but it is also historical. So, this is a perfect example of how this race of so-called aliens are actually angels. We must use the Word of God to understand what these beings actually are. The most common description of aliens when you think about them is the little gray aliens. There is a spiritual component to so-called aliens, and that's something very important that I want you to understand for this video. One similarity between angels and aliens is how UFO abductees report being told not to be afraid by these beings in a very similar manner to biblical angels. The Greys are believed to be very evil, but they are far from the worst. Some call these creatures demons or fallen angels, most likely because when those who were abducted by these beings called out for the name of Jesus, the Greys would get scared and the abduction would stop completely. The spiritual component to these beings is evident in how they have been reported to be able to completely paralyze people, making it easy to abduct them. They can phase through walls, communicate telepathically, and exhibit a host of other supernatural abilities. The ability to paralyze people is described as being similar to experiencing sleep paralysis, where you can't move but can see. This is the state when your eyes are open to the spiritual realm, yet you are completely defenseless. According to a secret government book known as Alien Races, the American government actually knows about the Greys and allows them to abduct humans freely. In return, America receives advanced technology. Perhaps this explains how humans have evolved so fast technologically. This treaty allegedly occurred when President Eisenhower was in office. According to the book, the Greys were only allowed to abduct a certain number of humans. But after the treaty was made, the Greys abducted far more humans than the number agreed upon. Although things like this may sound unbelievable, we were clearly told by the Bible that human beings are not alone on the earth. Satan and his fallen angels were sent to earth as well. So wouldn't it be possible that Satan and his fallen angels would disguise themselves as peaceful outer space aliens, giving technology away? We were clearly warned that the devil would masquerade himself as an angel of light and deceive almost all of humanity. If you're passionate about discovering the profound truths of our world, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to share this video for your family and friend as a support for us to make more better content. The fiery chariot in the Bible and its similarities with UFOs. Now back to this treaty that allegedly occurred around the 1950s. This would certainly add up due to the increased activity of UFO sightings and abductions, such as the Betty and Barney abduction or the UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. This was all happening within the same time frame. According to the secret book, the Greys claimed to be from a binary star system known as Zeta Reticuli. To validate this claim, a former scientist named Bob Lazar, who worked at a base in Area 51 known as S4, claimed to have worked on a UFO from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Not only did he claim to work on this otherworldly craft all the way back in the 1980s, but just in 2023, he was proven right when several government officials held a congressional hearing where they openly admitted that UFOs are very real and that they even have some in their possession. Are these the biblical chariots of fire? Well, let's look a bit deeper and make the proper comparisons between the Bible and these so-called aliens. Former Israeli Space Security Chief Chaim Eshed said extraterrestrials exist and that former President Donald Trump knows about it. These beings are known as the Galactic Federation. Now, this incident was forgotten very quickly. But let's take a moment to reanalyze what was said about the extraterrestrials. First off, we're told that these beings are actually working with high-ranking government officials. Eshed said that Trump was going to openly tell the public about these beings, but he was told not to by the Federation due to humanity not being ready just yet. Before I continue, I must add that Chaim Eshed is not just some random guy making extraordinary claims. Eshed, who oversaw the launch of numerous Israeli satellites into space, said he was only speaking out now because attitudes were changing, and people seemed more receptive also due to the Pentagon releasing similar information in 2023. Perhaps we're being prepared for something. The Bible tells us about a global event taking place before the apocalypse begins. This is known as the rapture. In this global event, all those who are saved by God will be taken to heaven while still alive. Although the word rapture is not seen in the Bible, we can see hints of this global event happening in verses like 1 Thessalonians 4:16-18. This is exactly what those verses say. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. The question is, what exactly will this event look like? The answer may lie in Renaissance paintings. Each of these ancient paintings shows us what angels may actually look like. Let's take a look at the baptism of Jesus Christ. If we focus toward the top of the painting, we can clearly see a disc-shaped object illuminating Jesus Christ, with some sort of beam emitting from the bottom of the craft. There were no such things as any sort of aircraft when this painting was created. So what exactly is this thing we are seeing? Let's take a look at some other Renaissance paintings from around the same time period. They all have a similar theme. All of them clearly have illustrations of disc-shaped objects in them. These can be, and most likely are, the interdimensional crafts that the Bible tells us about. So, will the rapture actually look more like this? And is that what humans are being prepared for? Or is it something completely different that we aren't expecting? Books about alien races, from the tall whites to the reptilians. Former President Ronald Reagan gave a speech about uniting the world under a one-world order. In 1987, President Ronald Reagan spoke about how quickly our differences would fade if we faced an alien threat. Isn't this an odd thing for the President of the United States to say? It seems as if he had an inner knowledge of a hostile race of aliens planning just that. There is a story about a group of non-human entities known as the Tall Whites that may possibly be introduced to humans as a benevolent, godlike species. But this race is far from peaceful according to first-hand accounts. This first-hand account is told by Charles James Hall, a nuclear physicist, ex-military American weather specialist, and author. He claims to have seen and worked with these beings known as the Tall Whites. They were principally involved in technology transfers with the U.S. military. But Hall was told by his superiors that every person who had previously held the assignment, he had been seriously attacked, or at the very least warned away under the threat of being killed. They didn't see Hall as a being of value. They actually referred to him as their pet. They have what we would call serious issues over control. They felt the need to control their pet, just as they observed us controlling ours. On one occasion, the beings even turned on Hall without warning, grievously wounding him in the neck and leaving him to bleed his life away in the desert dust. In that desperate situation, alone and miles from any human help, Hall found a way to save his own life by using his body weight to press his wound against the soft earth, stemming the flow. This was one of the most eerie things the Tall Whites did, as if telling Hall, "We have power over you. We expect you not to make it, but we will applaud you if your tenacity and will to live allow you to pull through." Hall's own words about first encountering the Tall Whites were, "When you encounter the Tall Whites, it's such a shock you are not sure if you are looking at a ghost or an angel, or if you are dreaming." He said they are about 8 feet tall. They look very human-like, besides a few key factors. Firstly, the Tall Whites are extremely fragile in comparison to humans. They have pale, chalk-white skin as pale as a piece of paper. They also have platinum white short hair, and they wear an all-white suit. Something interesting is the way they write. Their writing looks very similar to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The scariest part about this story is when Hall said these beings can go out into the world and pass as humans by disguising themselves. The Tall Whites live much longer than humans, between 600 to 800 years, and they are far more advanced than humans. One piece of technology they have is a weapon that can energetically hypnotize a person. They also have scouting aircrafts that look like this. The book also mentions an ancient serpent-like race of extraterrestrials known as the reptilians. This is an incredibly hostile race of aliens according to the book. By the way, if I didn't mention it before, all of these extraterrestrials are allegedly on Earth as we speak. The reptilians have the ability to shapeshift into a perfect human, and they are believed to manipulate society by taking high positions in the government. The most powerful reptilians are known as the white-skinned draconian reptilians. They have wings and seem to hold a more authoritative position than the other reptilians. Conclude. Perhaps this is the race of serpents the Bible tells us deceived mankind, leading to the fall from the Garden of Eden. Countless times the Bible calls Satan a serpent or dragon. Could this be the creature the Bible was referring to? Isn't it odd how many of these alien races resemble angels? A majority of these alien races seem to have a very angelic look to them. So what do you think? Are aliens fallen angels? Are they demons? Or do you think aliens are just advanced outer space creatures? These questions can challenge our mind. Comment below your opinions and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget, share the videos for your network, like the channel and press bell button. See you then and have fun.